He looked at her figure. She looked so delicate. A protective feeling suddenly arose in him. Then his gaze fell on her neck. His face went cold at the sight of the bite mark. Jealousy was boiling deep inside. He reached out and pulled Nahu to him, leaning over her. Nahu asked in slight panic, "What happened?" Taha said calmly, "It seems you've been bitten by an insect." His fingers went to Nahu's neck, very softly, as if he wanted to read the small mark. Nahu was surprised. Insects were very rare this season, and she felt no pain at all. He said, "It's definitely an insect bite," but his tone was strange. Scenes from that morning flashed through Nahu's mind. Perhaps Michelle had left that mark. Her cheeks heated. A deep wave of shame washed over her that Taha had noticed it. She quickly said, "Yes, it was probably a bug bite," and lightly placed her hand on her neck, as if trying to hide the truth. Taha exhaled, moving closer to her. His finger traced the mark again, this time more slowly. Jealousy and anger clashed within her, but she controlled herself and pretended she believed him. He said, "It needs a bandage," and searched his pocket for something. Nahu breathed a sigh of relief. She thought he'd agreed. He very softly applied the bandage to her neck, then smoothed it lightly with his palm. A strange feeling arose within Nahu, a little awkward, but also a little good. Then he asked, "Why don't you reply to my texts? I feel bad when you don't." There was a palpable sadness in his words. Nahu had never heard such a message from anyone. The thought of someone caring about her was completely new to her. She didn't know what to say. Then she remembered how bad she felt when Mitchell didn't respond to her messages. A sharp stab of guilt came over her, and she softly said, "Sorry." She had never used that word before. He said even more heartily, "You're probably bored of me." Nahu actually wanted to talk, as she had no friends, and the feeling that someone was genuinely interested in her warmed her up a bit. Taha stepped forward and adjusted her collar, saying, "You don't need to say sorry. I want to talk to you myself. That's why I'm texting." Then he leaned in slightly and said, "I was just throwing a tantrum like a child." Then he said, "Nahu, you don't need to hurt yourself for anyone. Do whatever your heart desires." Nahu had heard these words for the first time in her life. For the first time, someone had told her to do what her heart desires. Her mood suddenly lightened and improved. She asked her boss if she could buy a flower. The boss said, "You work so hard, I'll give it to you for free." But Nahu insisted she pay. She decided to buy herself a gift this time, and it brought a little joy. It was the first time she had bought something for herself. She thought about putting the flower in a vase before her next job, to keep it from wilting. She filled a small vial with water and placed the rose in it. A light, quiet joy spread through her heart. She decided to share this moment with Taha. She took a photo of the rose and sent him a message. Just then, Michelle came home. He asked, "What are you doing at home? You haven't gone to work." Nahu said, "I just came for a while. I'm about to leave." She was happy that he might be back, but Mitchell said he was just changing and going overtime. Just then, his eyes fell on the rose. He stopped and asked, "Where did this flower come from?" Nahu said, "I bought it for myself, a rose for myself." Something inside him shifted. For a moment, he felt sorry for Nahu. He thought how lonely she looked, and for a moment, he felt like touching her. Then another thought came to his mind. He was giving flowers to two women. The thought sent a strange tingle through his nerves. He decided to show Nahu some love and then go see Ari. But Nahu stopped him and said, "I'm having my dangerous period right now." He became irritated. He grabbed her chin and said, "You can never get pregnant anyway." There was irritation in his voice. He said, "You always ruin everything," and left angrily. Nahu sat down on the ground. Her heart was shattered. At that very moment, Taha was looking at Nahu's message. He was overjoyed that Nahu had written to him. Just then, some girls who recognized him came by. They were surprised to see someone like Taha in this poor area. They said, "It's a coincidence that we found you here." Taha smiled slightly. He thought, "I don't believe in coincidences." It occurred to him that behind every coincidence, there are many inevitabilities, one after another, adding up, so that one day, that moment, brings you to the place where you are destined to meet. He said with a smile, "There are no accidents." Naha was folding clothes when she found Mitchell's shirt. She noticed a lipstick mark on the collar. A blankness filled her mind. The heart started beating fast. Mitchell was waiting for Ari in the parking lot. Ari smiled at him and asked where they were going today. But his anger was still simmering after the scene with Nahu. He said nothing, just opened the car door and abruptly pulled Ari towards him. He knew Ari would never refuse him, so he took advantage of that weakness. Meanwhile, Nahu was completely distracted. Her thoughts were interrupted by the lipstick mark on her husband's shirt. Things were falling from her hands. A glass slipped from her hand and broke into pieces. The red mark was the only thing on her mind. Nahu had never used makeup, so she kept convincing herself that it was probably her misunderstanding. I must be overthinking. She was afraid that if her suspicions turned out to be wrong, Mitchell would be hurt. She held back the tears that had gathered in the corner of her eyes and told herself not to worry and that everything would be fine. But at that very moment of misfortune, she overheard a client's phone call. The client was consoling her friend, whose husband had cheated on her. That awakened the fear hidden in Nahu's heart. She realized that Michelle was cheating on her, perhaps because they had no children. Usually, work distracted her, but today, everything was drawing her back to the same pain. She wondered, why is this happening to me? She always forced herself to think positively during difficult times, but now she didn't know what was left of her and Michelle's relationship. Just then, Taiha rode his bike outside the store where Nahu worked. He saw Nahu sitting slumped over through the glass window, sadness evident in her eyes and face. It dawned on him, the more I want to stay away from it, the more I'm drawn to it. He didn't take off his helmet and went straight inside. Nahu was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't even hear the customer approach. She thought, this man is a bit strange. He came without saying a word, didn't even buy anything. Then she noticed his height. Tall, strong figure. For a moment, a flash of light crossed her mind, as if she recognized someone. Just then, the boy held his phone out to her. There was a message on the screen. It all made sense. Taiha was flirting again. Nahu sighed. Good. It wasn't a stranger. He asked, do you want to be scolded? In a slightly joking tone. Taiha removed his helmet. There was a slight red glow in his eyes. Nahu asked, why are you wearing a helmet? He said, I came straight from work to see you. The girl thought, maybe he works as a delivery boy. She didn't even ask him. He said, be careful on the road. He laughed and said, oh, so you're worried about me. Nahu jokingly asked him to stand up and lift his helmet over his head as if it were punishment for her joke. He actually did, and stood up. Nahu was speechless for a moment. Taiha stood there, a little smug, yet incredibly charming. Nahu asked, why did you come? He said, I didn't have dinner. I had to buy something. The girl worried that he might be hungry. She scolded him. If you don't have time to eat, change jobs. Taiha was amazed by her concern. He liked it. For a moment, his mind flashed back to the night when he was about to witness the truth. That Nahu's husband was with his mistress. He was disgusted to think that Nahu had such a man. But he remained patient. He stood next to her and said, I can't quit. My work is too important. Nahu remembered telling her about his family problems. She thought he really worked hard, and someone with such a large frame deserved good food. She said she would treat him to dinner today. Nahu said, choose whatever you like. I'll treat you. The boy stared at her for a while. Then he said, I'll just take your heart. Buying food is my job. He placed his hand on the shelf and said, "Just help me choose the tastiest things." Nahu was embarrassed. She thought he was joking again. He stood close, his strong back, his warm presence. It made Nahu's breath hitch. Then her eyes fell on Bomtaiha's wrist. It was the beginning of a sentence in the form of a tattoo. Nahu asked, "What's that on your wrist?" Bomtaiha looked at him. For a moment, she thought Nahu didn't like tattoos. Maybe she thought he was too rough. He rolled up his sleeve so Nahu could see clearly. Then he said, "If you don't like it, I'll erase it." Nahu immediately grabbed his hand. His voice trembled slightly. "Tell me why this scar is there," he said. His eyes were filled with worry. Bomtaiha paused for a moment. She remembered how wounds bled beneath the blackening. Nahu thought, how much hardship this young boy must have endured. Has he done this to himself? She wanted to know the story behind his sad eyes. Bomtaiha read everything on his face. She felt Nahu sympathizing with her, and it brought her a slight joy. It even felt a little funny. She sensed a strange pleasure in his expression, as if she were opening up to him. At that very moment, she thought it might be a good idea to tease him a little more.